All right. Hello. Welcome to the third installment of the Horn Hang with Jer and Jon. My name is Jeremy,
I'm John.
and today we are happy to be talking about a multitude of things. Our main topic today is about how to play, how to be a good section mate. Lots of really good information there. Um, but first, we kind of like to segue into that, kind of warm things up with a little bit of some highs and lows between John and I and what's going on in our respective lives. And John, why don't you kind of kick things off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, like I said, it's been a been a busy couple of weeks since we've been haven't been able to meet. So it's nice to
Oh
actually
yeah.
kind of get back into the routine of things that we had
Mhm.
set up going into the first two episodes. So I guess I'll do the lows first, I guess. My only low really is I got my first jury duty summons. So
Oh
the only
man.
that's the only thing. But I originally had it back, and I was originally supposed to be called in February, but I actually got them to defer it to middle of May because I explained my situation of being, a part-time teacher at a university,
Sure.
also being an independent contractor, and that my livelihood depends on me being active and working every single day.
Mhm.
They thankfully they actually accepted it. I think you can actually send when you send in a deferment for jury. So this is for everyone, not just musicians in general. But if you get summoned for it and you are not able to do it, if you can give them, like, I think it's within a 3 month time period, they actually will defer it. So that's what happened with me, thankfully. So thankfully, in the
So,
middle of May, I don't have anything going on since the school semester at the university is done at that point, and all the other schools that I go in and work with are, they're in the middle of EOC testing and finals and whatnot, so they're pretty much done by that point.
how, I've never gotten jury duty before, so I have no idea, like, what criteria do I meet to get chosen? And then how far in advance is it? Do you know kind of like, do they give you like a set day and time for like what? Give me the gist, John.
Yeah, so actually, I actually have it right here in my office. So it says, for me, my like on call date is May 15th through May 26th. So it's a 2 week period. I was actually,
Yeah.
yeah, funny enough, actually, like I mentioned this, I was actually over at Rich Ida's shop the other day, dropping off some of my horns to get some chem cleans and get some dents taken out. And I was catching up with Phil Ehrman, who kind of runs the shop now when Rich is not there.
Mhm.
He said, like, he actually just got his first jury duty summons about a month ago. And you have
Wow.
to I think with what I have to do, because his is in Gwinnett County, mine's in Cobb County, so I'm having to go
Mhm.
all the way to the Superior Court in downtown Atlanta. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's like, my understanding, it's for everyone that lives in, like,
But is that not Fulton County?
no, well, it's interesting based on what I have seen and what I've read. It's
Mhm.
counties that are like Cobb County, Fulton County, and Douglas County. It's basically any county that connects into the city, basically.
I see. I see.
Yeah,
I
so,
see.
like, even though I live up in Cherokee County, like, I think it's just because, like, my license is still registered under Cobb, because I haven't updated it, and there's not, at this point in time, there's not a point for me to. When I got
Right.
it updated like almost 10 years ago, I was just like, well, I'm not, I was getting ready to go to grad school. I was like, I'm not going to update my license for Texas. I'm only going to be there for 2 years.
2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
didn't make
fair.
sense at that point to do that. So my understanding is what I have to do is, I think I have to call on like the 13th, like 2 days before or something like that. I have all the instructions with me. I was actually back in my car. I had to, like, print off like all this stuff and, like, cut off
Oh
a certain
wow.
section and mail it out and whatnot. It has like my juror number and everything on that. So, I'm not, I mean, yes, I mean, yeah, it's cool that I guess I get called to do for like a civic duty, but it's very, for what you and I do, like being independent contractors, it's kind of like,
It's inconvenient.
yeah, like, it's a very interesting setup of what they have, because I think it's more set up in a way for people that have corporate jobs where they can afford to take paid time off
Mhm.
because of this. I'm like,
Right.
I don't I
We
can't
can't
do.
afford that.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't afford to do that. You know. I mean, thankfully,
It's
you
not
know,
like you're gonna get. It's not like you're gonna get paid for a gig you don't show up for.
yeah, exactly. I mean, they do like for jury duty, if you do get called to be there for the whole time, they pay, I think it's
Right.
$50 a day. But I'm like, I can make more than that
50
by
bucks
doing
a
like,
day.
yeah, I'm like, I
That's
can
like
make more
lunch
than that.
money.
Yeah. Well, especially now, especially like, you know, having to park downtown Atlanta and whatnot.
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
that's not worth it. So that's
It's
kind of like
ridiculous.
my low per se. I mean, it's really
Right.
not. It's really not that bad. It's just more of an inconvenience more than anything. But I guess like a couple of good highs have been at the beginning of this past month, beginning of April. I had Michael Brown come in and work at the studio. He
Hmm.
came in and did lessons on Monday, and then did trumpet ensemble and studio class on Wednesday. And I actually invited a decent amount of some of my high school students in the area since they were on their spring break during that time. So I actually had
Hmm.
about I think it was like 5 or 6 of my high school students show up for that, and
Nice.
that was really enjoyable. And I think the studio here at the university really enjoyed what Michael had to say. We, you know,
Good.
at the week after, we kind of did like, you know, just kind of like a follow through. It was like, you know, what'd you guys get from it and whatnot? And they're like, well, he said a lot of the same things you said. And I was like, well, we did study with the same teachers in undergrad, so a lot of our pedagogical
Right.
ideas are going to be very similar, just like you and I. Like I'm sure like you and I probably share a lot of very similar ideas. If we were to,
Hmm.
you know, work with each other's different studios at a given point in time, they would probably hear the same things, just maybe saying it in a different slight manner
Sure.
or different way. But I
Yeah.
think the kids really enjoyed it. They were like, man, he's really energetic. I was like, yep, that's Michael for you. But they really enjoyed his time here, so that's been nice. And this Friday, I'm going to work with his studio at University of North Georgia, so it'll be nice to
Speaking
kind of
of,
flip
who's
flopping.
calling me?
Speak of the devil, it's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times, and he's like,
Right.
someone said my name.
I will call him back.
Yeah, that's hysterical. We'll have to talk about. I'll talk to them later about that. Be like, during our podcast.
Yeah, that'll
But
be
yeah,
funny.
so that's been my highs and lows. So what's been on the docket and on your highs and lows for the past, like, I don't know, like month or two since the
Hmm.
last time we got together.
Yeah, it's been a month.
Yeah, busy. It's been a busy month. It's been a good
Well,
month.
yeah, it's been a busy month. March and April have been very busy.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, a week ago, I did my chamber recital, which was
Nice.
a good
I
time, and I finished that.
Yeah,
Um,
I caught some of it and watched a little bit of it. It sounded great, man.
okay, good,
Yeah,
good. Do
yeah.
you know what part you tuned
Uh,
into?
I think it was like the second half that I saw.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That was the rougher half, in my
Oh, really?
opinion.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
it sounded great from my end, from where I was. So yeah.
Thanks,
So
John. I
yeah,
appreciate that. But yeah, it was good to get done. Honestly, the chamber recital was um a really stressful endeavor, just not because of the music by any means. I mean, some of the
yeah,
music was difficult by no regard, but just
yeah,
the logistics and coordinating it all and just making sure that you find times that everyone can work with and getting spaces booked ahead of time, making sure everyone is aware of that time. And
yeah.
I had a lot of ambitions for the chamber recital. One of the pieces I originally wanted to do, John, called for 10 players. And
What piece was that?
it was the Francais Le Gay Paris. It
Okay,
has C trumpet. It's like trumpet's like the primary thing, and there's like it's a cute little piece. You should listen to
okay,
it. Um, Very French, and I love that stuff. So I
yeah,
mean, I was gonna do that. I was gonna do Handle Eternal Source of the Light Divine, and both of
yeah,
those ended up not happening just because you just everyone is kind of doing the thing, and it's hard, asking people, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, I'm already doing four recitals," kind of thing. So,
yeah.
but what
That's
I did
tough.
do, I felt like it went well for the most part. Everyone really enjoyed it. I heard all good things, and I treated everyone to a nice dinner afterwards. And so that's my last kind of like big recital. I had to do two solo recitals, then the chamber recital. Now I have
Yeah.
my two lecture recitals. And basically what I'm going to do there, I'm going to do Michael Brown. When are you free, bro? um,
That sounds like Michael. He does that to me all the time. I love it.
yeah. Well, I'm sure he wants to talk about brass band, but that we can segue into that as well.
Sure.
Basically, for my two lecture recitals, I'm going to do Um, it's going to be like a recording project. I'm going to make a CD. That's what
Oh,
I'm
nice.
thinking, and I'm going to
Yeah.
record eight brass fanfares, eight American brass fanfares,
Oh, dope. Nice.
that were originally a part of a commission of 10 brass fanfares. Fanfare for the Common Man was the first of those
Oh, okay.
fanfares.
I was about to say, I think I remember like reading or
Yeah,
like
we've chatted about this.
yeah, okay.
Um,
That'll be cool.
so, and a lot of these have never been really recorded or anything. The only two that we aren't doing the Copeland, and then we are doing Fanfare for Russia because,
Okay.
obvious reasons.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
but
Maybe
and then I'm just gonna
fanfare for
like,
Ukraine.
yeah, something like that. But yeah, I'm just gonna kind of go into that, and that's kind of what I'll do next year. But
Nice.
other than
Yeah.
that, really no lows, just kind of like just been going crazy. I have two students doing a recital this evening, and
Nice.
um, I'm playing organ and not really.
Oh,
I'm playing like a keyboard in the FSU Wind Orchestra, and we're doing Maslanka 4 this week, which will be interesting.
yeah, we're playing Maslanka 4 with the Atlanta Wind Symphony that Dr. Keeler
Nice.
conducts. So yeah, it's I mean, I've never played the organ part, but is super cool, especially at the very end and whatnot.
Yeah,
But I mean, just the trumpet parts are just absolutely ridiculous in that
crazy. Are
piece.
you
Yeah,
playing
like
principal on it?
yeah, I'm playing all the piccolo stuff as well too. So it's a chop.
That high F sharp on B flat pick.
I'm actually doing it on because they actually gave us the past two times I played it, all I was given was B flat part, and it's just written for B flat pick. Just play it as written.
Right.
It sounds the octave higher. They actually gave us
Mhm.
the option of either doing C trumpet parts or B flat parts, and I was like, give me those C parts because those C parts are so much easier than the B flat parts. Just like some of
Like
the
in like reading or like fingering stuff.
yeah, fingering, just reading, and just style. It's just so much easier. So I'm actually on the piccolo trumpet. I'm actually doing it. I've been kind of experimenting a little bit the past couple. We've had 3 rehearsals on it, and
Mhm.
it's actually sounding really good, especially for a community group. Um,
Right.
which even Dr. Keeler's like he's like for only 3 rehearsals, this is sounding pretty damn good. And I
Mhm.
agree. It's I mean, and that piece is not easy by any means. I think it's probably one of the
It's
more
hard. It's hard,
I th-
bro. It's
I think
long.
it's like 30 minutes long. I think it's one of the more difficult wind band pieces in the rep. Like I really do because
I think
it's
all of
so
Maslanka is really crazy, really difficult to play.
yes.
Some of the trumpet
But
parts are a little ridiculous.
dude, one of those like part of the lines in that mass like in his fourth symphony are literally like woodwind parts, like in the middle, like that weird
Yeah. The jazz
jazz.
section.
Yeah, it's really weird. But like I've been experimenting with doing some of the pick stuff on the B flat side and also doing it on the A side. Some of
Mhm.
it's a little bit easier on the A side and some of it's a little bit easier on the B flat side. So I'm still experimenting a little bit on it to find like which one. And then of course trying to figure out which piccolo mute I want to use because I've got like 3 different piccolo mutes now.
Yeah.
And whatnot. So it's just like trying to figure out like which one sounds the best for that. So yeah.
I know
Yeah,
you have that on like, yeah,
yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, it's just but it's man, it's a beautiful piece though. I
Yeah,
love
it's very cool. It's very powerful. It's just kind of like a big do re mi festival.
yes.
Do re mi fa,
Yes.
do re mi
And
fa sol.
it's
I'm just
yeah,
like, what?
yeah.
And then like the classic Muslim bum 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 bum. I'm like, I'm just
It's
like,
those
okay.
yeah, it's such a classic Maslanka line there that he throws in with like everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful piece. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun playing the keyboard slash organ part.
Yeah, it's definitely I can't do all of it obviously, but I'm doing the big important parts like the ba
Sure.
ba 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 ba.
Yeah.
There's actually a great piano solo in there too. There's a lot of
Yes.
really cool things in there. So that's like my organ debut essentially.
Nice.
What else am I doing?
How was
You know,
NTC
I
by the way?
NTC was great. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun, a lot of really good cats there.
Yeah.
I got to hear the U.S. Army brass quintet perform,
Oh
and they
yeah.
were really solid. And um, one of our undergrads got third in the undergrad solo division, so that was a lot of fun. And
Go
got to
Knowles, right?
eat. Yeah, right. Got to eat a lot of good food.
Yeah.
It was cold. It was
Yeah.
17 degrees when we left. And dude, it was so beautiful.
I heard it snowed out there like one of the last
It
days.
did. It did.
Nice. That's pretty
It
cool.
didn't like snow, but it like there was snow on the ground essentially.
Wow.
Um,
Nice. Nice. That's really cool.
Basically now I've just been trying to scan a lot of music, just finishing up some last assignments.
Yeah.
Juries are coming up, so doing all that and
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah, we got juries coming up. I think this Wednesday for everyone at the university, and then I've got
right.
actually one of my students. She's doing a week from today. She's doing her junior recital, so that'll be fun. So
Nice.
it's been cool to kind of help like being on the prep side and not like what we've been used to, like getting like what you just went through
Right.
for your your chamber recital of having to
Mhm.
prepare. Of me being the teacher of helping them prepare and giving them different tips and ideas and things like that. So, but we're doing a pretty. She's sounding really really great. She just won the concerto competition actually.
Cool. Very
Yeah,
cool. Very
yeah.
cool.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way with the two freshmen that I have whose recitals this evening.
Yeah,
Basically like a joint recital. The
yeah.
first kid is doing the Hindemith,
Nice.
then the whole thing. Then the second kid is
Okay, nice.
doing the Artunian. The whole thing stands cadenza, so no cadenza.
Oh no. Okay, gotcha.
Um, and then the first kid is doing La Spirit de la Trumpet by Stevenson.
Oh,
It's
okay.
a cool
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
piece.
Is that the little fifth
Jason,
floor one?
no, Jason Bergman premiered it with
Oh,
UNT.
okay, okay.
It's very like digga 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 stuff. It's very flashy.
Gotcha.
Um, and
That's a lot of
then the
Stevenson's
second,
music.
yeah, and then the second kid is doing the Ode to Badinage,
Yeah.
and then they're finishing with some polka duet. I don't really know, but
Hey, cool.
um,
That works perfectly. I think those like I like those ideas of doing like joint recitals because it
I
gives
think it's
you.
great.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I would have done those, but I was just kind of I was like, I'm gonna do my own recital, blah blah blah. But I'm like,
Right.
I
I
think doing
mean,
those joint recitals are I think work really well because it gives you an opportunity. If like for example, doing the Hindemith, dude, that thing is a monster. Especially like the getting to the into that third movement with that chorale, like
oh yeah.
like what is that? The All Men Shall Die Bach chorale
Hmm.
thing. I mean, that thing will that man that separates the boys from the men of trumpet
It's
players.
definitely a
So
bear of a piece, and I think the Hindemith is like one of the most important pieces in the repertoire for trumpet for sure. And so,
oh yeah,
and I'm sure we can say the same for a lot of instruments because that was
yeah,
his thing. Really
yeah.
deceptive piano parts, but
Yeah,
yeah, he's hanging in there. I mean, they're
nice.
both they're both freshmen. I mean, I think they both didn't realize all of the facets that go into doing a recital, like the
Yeah,
programs, the rehearsals, the getting a
yeah,
pianist,
yeah,
the getting a space part, this and
yeah.
that kind of thing. And so, but I feel like it was a good experience for them. But
Nice.
I don't know if a freshman asked me to do a recital next semester, I might just say, why don't we wait? Why don't we wait a little bit?
Yeah, like I said, it's good experience for sure. But it can be a lot, especially if it's like your first year student, man. That's just so much to do because you're still
Yeah, it's
getting
like you're still kind of like you're figuring out life. You're still getting acclimated, and
you're still
I
trying to
was telling one of
balance
my
everything.
students, I'm like, dude, you're 19 years old. Sometimes it's important for you to be 19 instead of spending all of that time in the practice room. I mean, yeah, get that time in, but it's like you need to kind of explore the world if you want to become a good person and good musician because like exposure is
Yes,
and
100%. It's all about the quality, not the quantity. I mean,
yeah,
we know
I can
that. I mean, I mean that's something I've had to tell a lot of my students here at the university and just in general. I'm like, listen, I would much rather you go like practice for like 20-30 minutes, like really intense 30
mhm.
20 minutes, and then go do something else. And then come back later and do it again. So that way you're not getting,
Yeah,
burned out because I'm the same way. Like I'll be in a practice, like when I'm practicing and next thing you know, I get like a notification. I'm like, ooh, Facebook, hello. Or,
right, yeah,
Instagram or whatever. I get distracted so easily. So like, I'm like, that's why I can only practice in like very short bursts
yeah.
because it can be
And
tricky.
I feel the same way. It's like I'll finish doing an exercise and be like, okay, let's give myself a 5-second chop break,
Yeah. It
and
turns
then I'll
into
get
like,
on the phone.
yeah,
Yeah,
it turns into like 20 minutes. Yeah.
yeah, something
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah. I'm
I
guilty
I,
of that, unfortunately.
I need to get better at just like putting the phone away. But at the same time, I use my phone as like a metronome,
Yeah. Yeah.
tuner. If I want to listen to something, if
Yeah.
I want to record myself practicing.
It's
So
a double-edged sword for sure having
yeah,
the
man.
access to it, but I mean if you know how to balance it then of course that's fine. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, as I am learning and finishing up my first year of collegiate level teaching, like a full year,
Hmm.
like I've noticed, like not all of them are guilty of it, but a vast majority of them are very guilty of like just getting super distracted. And I get it. I understand that. Just having like that instant gratification of like, ooh, you get like that little red notification.
Yeah, I
You're like,
mean,
ooh, I gotta click it. I gotta click it. So
dude, like phones are designed to like steal as much time and attention away from the world as possible, you know?
yeah.
Like it's all the algorithms, just kind of like the design of it and the notifications. I mean, we're all kind of hooked psychologically when you really think about it. And
Oh yeah. I mean, it's
I mean,
bad. It's bad. But like I said, it's a double-edged sword. It's all about moderation, I guess, in the sense
yeah,
of
and it's about
like
what you make of it for sure.
yes.
And
Oh, 100%. 100%.
you know, what I really love now is how like you can limit your screen time and you can limit how long
Yes.
you want to be on apps and things like that. And
Yeah, that's
I
definitely a
don't know.
blessing. That's definitely a blessing part of that, of the technology, of being able to actually put like a cap on certain things, so that way you're not doing it. Like for me, like it's really, I think it's I mean, I haven't been on my iPad today because this is like the first Sunday I haven't had a church gig in like maybe 3 months. Almost every Sunday I've got to do
Wow.
something, which is great. um so like normally, like I think it's at the beginning of each week, my iPad, at least for my iPad, it shows me like how much screen time. It says like today,
Yeah.
this week you were up 15% or you were down
Mhm.
10% than usual. So it's nice when I see that it's like down more than usual. So I'm like, yes, I wasn't using it as much.
Yeah.
But yeah. But
My
there
phone
are
told
other times.
me,
Does it do the same thing?
oh, yeah, my phone told me today that I spent 6 hours and 52 minutes a day averaging.
Yikes.
Which yeah, it's been a lot worse, you know. For my
Sure.
iPad, it's different. The iPad's different.
Yeah, I feel like the
Um,
same thing because we both probably use our iPads for the same, like using Fourscore and using a lot of music
right.
stuff on it. So I feel like that's a little bit different compared to our actual phone where we're using it for
Yeah.
mostly social
I
media
mean, dude,
purposes.
like it was during COVID, I was on my it was told I was like on my phone for almost 12 hours a day. Like it was ridiculous. So
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
feel that. Yeah, well, there
it
was
is
nothing to
what it
do at that
is.
point. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So, but anyways,
Um,
so you said something about brass band, right?
yeah, I mean, NABA just happened.
That's
So
right. I think it just happened this past week. I
this
think.
past weekend,
Yeah.
and um, I found out that the Five Lake Silver Band got first place in the championship division, and
They're
Fountain
from that's up in
they're in
Michigan, right?
Michigan, and Fountain City got second,
Go green,
which
right?
kind of yeah, but that kind of shocked me because you know Fountain City's always been the favorite to win, and
Yeah, I'm sure Fountain City
um
still sounded fantastic.
yeah, but that's just very interesting.
From my understanding, because I was talking talking with Michael about it. He said that this year Fountain City's like cornet section in general was a little bit like
Mm,
some younger players, like college players, than
I see.
their normal people. And they also didn't have David King conducting them this year.
Oh, who'd they have?
I think it was just their normal conductor, whoever, I'm not sure who it is, but they normally for the like competition season have someone else, and that's kind of what Georgia Brass Band has been doing ever since like
Yeah,
2019, I think. Like they would have like the normal guy does everything throughout the normal like season, but then when it gets ready for NABA, they have someone else come in that is like the
yeah.
guest conductor for the competition season.
Mhm.
So,
Do you
but I
know who the
saw
Georgia Brass Band play had as their conductor?
Michael mentioned it to me like last week. I just can't remember who it was.
Oh, okay.
Um, they wanted to try to have Jeff Harper, from my understanding. He's one of the, I think he's either the orchestra director or one of the band directors at Lassiter High School
Okay.
in Marietta. They wanted to try and have him because he's a really great conductor, but they ended up getting someone else. I think his schedule, based on what Michael told me, was just it wasn't available for them.
Right,
So,
sure.
so yeah, I'm not entirely sure who they have or who they had for the competition season.
Mhm.
So I don't know how they did. I'm sure they probably sounded great.
They got six again.
Okay, okay.
So
I mean,
I
it's
think
that's
it
I mean
was
it's fierce competition in that
yeah, I
section.
think there were nine bands in total in the
Okay,
championship section. I think it was Five Lakes, Silver Band, and then it was Fountain City, and
okay.
then it was James Madison got third,
They're really good. James Madison.
and then I know Chicago Brass got fifth.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you who got fourth. Um, the
I'm sure it's in
Dallas
the
Brass
name.
Band, The Dallas Brass Band got seventh,
Oh wow, I didn't know
and
that they were in championship division this year. That's cool.
then the Northern Virginia Brass Band, I think they got eighth,
Okay.
and I think there were eight. There were eight of
Okay.
them. Sorry.
I'm sure if we ask Michael, he'll probably tell us all about it because he probably
Yeah,
knows
tell us
everything
all
about it.
about it.
I'm
Um,
so far out from the brass band world. I remember like when I was
Dude,
in
me
grad
too.
school.
Me
I
too.
remember like my last full year at Kennesaw, like right after my last semester, fall of 17, and then like spring of 18, I was playing with
Mhm.
Georgia Brass Band. So like I was like fully immersed in it. And then same
Yeah,
thing
it's
when I
great.
was yeah, it's awesome music. Same thing when I was in grad school. I played with the Austin Brass Band and then also played with the San Antonio Brass Band. Um,
Mhm.
and so I was like fully immersed. And then of course, COVID happened, and then I've subbed with Georgia Brass Band like maybe 3 times for like one of
Right.
their first things. So it was like fun to be back in it. But like I'm like Michael will mention these composers and pieces. I'm like, what's that? What is
Yeah.
that? I'm like, I don't
Same
know what that
here.
is.
Yeah. No,
I'm
I
so far out of the loop. It's ridiculous.
oh, I remember. I think so there were nine bands.
Okay.
And maybe Georgia Brass Band got fifth because the brass band in Central Florida got
That's right.
this. I think they also got lower than the Georgia Brass Band. I can't remember, but there are nine bands.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, man, I completely feel you. I wish there was a brass band close to me because it kind of
Yeah.
it's just
It's a
there's a
different
lot of
culture.
it's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of really
Dude, man,
fun music.
it's a finger
The
workout for
finger
us.
workout.
Oh my
It's a
God.
workout, man.
Yeah.
If I get to play like I like being on the front row, but I like being at like last chair on the front row, where you're
Yes.
playing like the bottom splits, you're kind of just hanging out,
Dude, you just get
holding
the
it
honk.
down.
You just get the
Yeah,
honk down there.
exactly.
It's so much less
Exactly.
pressure down there, especially like I
Right.
remember I think it was my spring of 18 when we went that was the first time I've been to NABA, and we
Mhm.
did this crazy test piece, and it was just like even when I was practicing it like uber slow, I was still just like fumbling over things, and I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna have to like fake a lot of this because it's just impossible to do. And like I'm
Right.
like, then I looked at like someone in the back rows part, and I was like, you guys want to switch? The
Yeah.
part looks so much easier. I was like, man, I could nail the crud out of that. But
Yeah.
so it goes.
I do enjoy playing in the back row too.
Yeah.
Um, but I I I like playing in the back of the front row. That's where I like to be.
Yeah. Doing like the like fourth, fifth solo part.
Yeah,
That's
near
kind of the
the
yeah.
flugel, near the tenor
Yes.
horn kind of thing.
Yes.
So,
That's kind of like my favorite sweet spot area as well too. Like playing like I've only had to sub like once on like well when I was in Austin Brass Band, it was this girl from Australia actually. It was our principal
oh, that's
soloist,
cool.
and then I was
Mhm.
second. So like there were times like she was out, so like I had to cover, which was fine. But it's just like, oh my God, this is so much more pressure. Like having to like when playing like the more exposed solos and whatnot, and like leading and getting the style and the sound of like what the cornets are supposed to be. So it's like
Right,
it's a lot of pressure.
right. I'd say that's like one of the big things about like being in a section that you got to really think about is just the blend and making sure that you're all kind of on the same page as far as kind of like what kind of sound and the colors and timbres that you're trying to reproduce. Because
Yeah.
if you have five cats in a section and you got five different sounds, nothing's really going to sound great.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I guess like in middle school band, they always tell you try to sound like one instrument,
Yep.
and
Oh, that's something I
but
say as well too. Like when I'm working with like trumpet section,
absolutely,
and like
yeah,
especially oh my God, especially since marching band season's like right around the corner, like especially trying to get like the younger students up to the level that they need to be at to
mhm,
play like with the upperclassmen. It can be a little tricky because they sometimes these rookie freshmen, they're playing with very interesting sounds. Um,
sure,
that do not that you can clearly hear sticking out where you're like, oh, okay, I know exactly who that is from like even all the
yeah,
way up in the box. You're like, that's Ricky Bobby or
so and
whatever,
so,
so and
yeah,
so or whatever. Yeah, you can tell right away. It's like, oh gosh. But yeah, it can be tricky. But yeah, so that's a nice little segue here into our topic of discussion today about how to be a good section mate.
yeah,
So I've got a few that I kind of wrote down here in my phone, some notes of some different things.
sure, go
Some
for
of
it.
them, some of them are a little like not all of them. Like I kind of like wrote them down just based off some things that I remember talking about in
Mhm.
grad school when I was studying with Miss Speciali. a little bit. Like we had some people come in talking about that stuff. So the first thing that I'll kind of talk about, I think, and this kind of pertains more to if you're like subbing in a section,
Right.
like for example, like I'll give it like for me, like when I got called in to go play assistant principal with the Greenville Symphony, we were doing the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in concert. So I was assistant principal to Kevin Lyons, and you and I both know Kevin's a monster of a trumpet player. Like
Mhm.
he doesn't really need an assistant, but he was like, hey, I want you to come play. I was like, cool, sweet, awesome.
Mhm.
So so one of the things like that I would say for me, especially like in the role that I was contracted of being assistant principal, was I would make sure that when Kevin was not playing and I was playing, that I needed to make sure that I was sounding just like him, so there was no
Sure.
discrepancy in sound going on. I think the big one though, especially for me since I was the assistant, was if you are called in for something like that, or just in general subbing for a section, make sure you're counting all your rests, because sometimes the principal may look to you and go, hey, what's the count? Kevin did
Yeah.
that. He did that a lot, just because there's so many moving parts, especially like when you're playing with a movie. It's like playing a musical, but like everything is amped up to like 20, because there's so many moving things going on. Like you have the screen
Yeah.
in front of you. You have, I mean, it was a full size symphony orchestra, whereas a pit orchestra is much more of a reduced
Right.
orchestra.
Right.
So I had to make
I,
sure I was counting like crazy, because he would look over me and
yeah.
be like, "What's the count?" I'm like, 10, 11.
Love it.
He's like,
Yeah.
sweet, thanks. And then boom, he would just come in and nail it. So I think that's
Yeah.
something that's a pretty important thing, especially if you are being contracted to play either, regardless of like if you're playing like what I was like assistant principal or even second. I think that's important to be
Right.
be on top of your counting is a good
Yeah.
word.
I think in general, no matter what instrument you play, you could be playing concert master violin, or you could be playing,
Yeah.
ninth oboe. Show up prepared, because rehearsal is not the place for you to learn your part. Rehearsal is the place for you to play your part and learn how it fits in with the rest of the ensemble.
A hundred
Um,
percent. 100%. Yeah.
and it's such a drag when you have to take away rehearsal time in order to help people
Yeah. I
either
mean, I
learn
was,
notes or get a lick up to speed. And I'm just like, bro, like
yeah,
this could
it's,
have been done ahead of time.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's always the worst. Like when you sit there, I mean, I only remember that happening like a handful of times, like when we were together at Kennesaw in our undergrad, like a couple of times, like where some people you could clearly tell like they were not prepared, and you're literally sitting there going like, oh my gosh, we could be doing like actually like running the piece instead of like having to sit here
Sure,
and work
yeah.
on something. So I mean, yeah, it's not fun. Yeah, that's definitely a big one. Is make sure like just show up prepared with your music like learned to the best of your ability. Obviously,
Yeah, I mean,
there's always going to be parts that are like, what is that? But
right. And
you got to know what you're playing.
bring a pencil, bring your mutes.
Yes,
If
yes,
you have to bring a flugelhorn, do that. Take care of everything that needs to be taken care of ahead of time, or else you're gonna make the rest of the section look bad, and then everyone
yeah.
is gonna be pissed at you, kind of thing.
Yeah, another big one as well too is like depending on like especially like in the brass section, if you are like a sub, ask them what mutes they're using as well, because
Right,
I think
right.
that's something I did when I played with Greenville. Is I asked Kevin, I was like, hey,
Hmm.
what, like I brought like we like I went over to his place and like we just kind of ran through some stuff. And before that, I texted when I sent him a message, I said, hey, what mute should I bring? And he said, I'm using, I think he said the Tom Crown Gemini.
Hmm.
I think he said one of like the Dennis Wick straight mute and a Trum Core copper bond. So I brought, and I have all three of those. So I brought them with me, and we ended up using just the Tom Crown Gemini mute. But
Hmm.
I wanted to make sure that I was matching him as close as I can.
Right.
I think that's something that's really important as well when you are being asked to play with the section or coming in as a new person, is making sure that you have, you don't want to show up and be, playing some, like if they're using cut mutes and they're using the Dennis Wick adjustable, and you walk in with the Humsenberg
Humes and Bergs, yeah.
the stone, which are great mutes, but those are more for like commercial jazz playing.
Yeah, I
You're not going
mean,
to see a whole lot of that. Yeah,
it's a
so like
different style.
yes, precisely. Like you said, like the big one is just really just come to the service prepared, like your gig prepared, like you said, know your music,
Yeah, I mean,
show up with a pencil.
either be prepared or just have, I don't know. I mean, I feel like you and I and a lot of other people are at points where it's kind of like for certain gigs, you don't have to invest as much time. You can show up prepared and be able to sight read some of the music because it's
For
just
yeah, I mean, again,
it's that straightforward. But I think if it's in like especially if it's in an academic setting or a
yeah,
professional setting where you're either getting paid, the expectation is just going to be a lot higher.
correct.
Um, and so it's kind of like you're being expected to do a job. Whereas, like, if you're playing at like a mom and pop kind of church where you're just like
Yeah,
playing hymns, A, you aren't transposing. B, it's probably very simple, like quarter notes and
yeah.
eighth notes and half notes kinds of thing. And so, I mean, I think you got to take it gig by gig or like any performance.
Yeah,
Some performances you're going to be playing a piece that features maybe the woodwinds, and so the brass part's not as crazy. Whereas like the next day you could get a
Petrushka.
brass fanfare, yeah,
Yeah,
thrown on your stand, and just kind of like how do you adapt and
yeah.
um how do you just like be able to be so well adept and versatile in a sense where being in a section, it can really create so many different facets and different perspectives based on the repertoire that you're doing. Like for
Yeah,
example, I know if we get handed a piece, it's really not a big deal. We're really not going to take it seriously. I mean, we'll play it obviously, but it'll be kind of a joke. It'll just be like, okay, whatever, it's easy. Where
yeah.
if it's a completely different standard of repertoire, like let's say it's a big masterwork,
Hmm.
obviously we're going to be very zeroed in, very focused. And I'm
Oh yeah,
sure
yeah. I was
for
gonna say just like you did
every
Mahler
section
too.
has that piece. Every
Yeah,
section has that pieces even.
yeah. I was about to say, I'm sure like when you guys did Mahler too, that was your going into your first year, right, at Florida.
Yeah, it was my first
Yeah,
year.
I'm sure like you guys like for those rehearsals, you guys were probably like horse blinders.
Oh yeah, and
You have
even
to be.
still,
Yeah,
that's 90 minutes of like you have to be on because if you're not on for like 1 minute, you're lost the rest
yeah,
of the time. You are
yeah,
SOL. So it's it's
yeah.
really it's really kind of like a team sport kind of
Oh
thing. And
yeah, 100%. So another one that I think that's important to like kind of being in it, to be a good section mate is make sure
Mhm.
that when you are, and this is something I really do believe, is make sure when you are warming up, make sure you're only like playing things that are pertinent to what you're about to play. Like no
Right.
reason to play like if you've been contracted to play second trumpet and you're playing like a Haydn symphony, there's no reason for you to play like Mahler 5 licks
Yeah.
or pictures at an exhibition licks. Like what that's not what you're
Hmm.
there for. Um, I remember Mike Tishone actually talked about this in a studio
Hmm.
class one day. He's like, listen, if you just show up to a gig and you are just like, you do a nice, easy warm up, you're going to get the other people in the section are going to be more impressed with that because all you're like what you're focusing on is can I get a good sound on something really, really easy compared
Right.
to, you know, being a lick learner, as Phil Smith likes to call it. Like, anyone
Hmm.
can do that. I've noticed that I've gotten more recognition like from just doing my long tones, doing some, Chickowitz stamp stuff, just so I can feel nice and open and relaxed. And then like I'll, spot anything that I'm still having trouble with. I'm
Right.
like, oh, okay, that's a
Right.
weird lick or that's got some awkward fingering in it. Let me go double check that. But I think that's
Yeah.
really important to not do anything over the top in your warm up, especially on
Yeah.
stage.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that, and that's something I've always kind of practiced in my professional endeavors. I hate when you like show up to a gig and like you're playing Brahms 2 or something,
Yeah.
and then the person next to you is
Playing
playing Rite of
playing
Spring.
yeah, playing Rise Spring like Alpine Symphony, playing like that high lick of the
Yeah.
ID.
And
Yeah, it's
I'm just
just
like, bro, like,
so another one that that comes to mind kind of falls into that, like, like showing off is more geared towards like the being making sure that the principal is comfortable in the
yeah,
section
it's a big
is
thing, big
is
part.
making sure that when they have a solo, you're not doing any movement or anything like that because I can kind of like throw off their mental focus more than
Yeah.
anything. Because I remember, for example, like back this past fall, I was contracted to play second trumpet with the Georgia Symphony, and we were doing
Mhm.
Tchaikovsky 4, and I was contracted to play second, and Yvonne Toll was playing first, and Yvonne
Mhm.
sounded fantastic. And we also did the Blue Mine movement of Mahler's First Symphony that has that
Mhm.
beautiful trumpet solo in it. So we're in the middle of a rehearsal, and I was just sitting there, and like I went to go move something. She was like, "Can you not move right now?" And I was just like, "Oh, sorry." Like and then she knew I wasn't doing it on purpose, obviously.
Right.
But
Right.
I was actually trying to mark something in my music, but like for her, she needed it to be really, studious
Yeah.
to her.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's something I think that is really important, is making sure, does like an overall picture, is making sure that as our job as either being, just in the section, is making sure that the principal feels as comfortable as possible. Like I say this to to some of my, like when I'm working with sections, um, that I was like, seconds and third trumpets, you actually have a really important job. You can make the first trumpet's job a living nightmare by, you could,
Mhm.
I mean, I don't think you guys would do it on purpose. But I was like, you could easily, play something really flat or play something really sharp, and it'll make their job way harder.
Harder.
So
Yeah.
I think, for me, like what I'm always doing is listening up to the first trumpet or the first
Right.
trumpet,
Mhm.
listening for, whatever their pitch is. Like if they're playing something a little higher, cool, I'm going to go with them. If they're playing something lower, I'm going to do my best to go down with them. Any type of style or articulation, I want to try to make sure I'm playing exactly what they're doing to the best of my ability, obviously. I mean, because we all
Mhm.
have, different sound concepts and ideas, but that's the tricky thing of being in a section role, is you kind of have to be a chameleon in a way, instead of being your own individual player. If you're playing principal, you kind of
Right.
have a little bit more liberty to get away with
Mhm.
that, compared to being in a section. It's like, you gotta fit in.
Right. Well, I will say, because it all kind of goes back to being a team player. But when you're a
Yes.
principal player, you have to be aware of the responsibility of that role within a
Yeah.
section and how it affects the rest of an ensemble. You have to set the style, you have to
Yeah.
set the standard, and if you don't know what the standard is, well, good luck. That's why I'm all
Yep.
about being aware kind of thing, thank you next, showing up prepared, being a team player, asking important questions, and being nice,
Yeah.
and just being mindful of the people around you for sure, especially, if there's a big prominent solo, just like don't make any quick movements or just kind of just look down. Don't, if they miss a note, you just stay stone cold kind of
Yeah.
thing.
You don't need to
Um,
do the look or anything. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
also I think when you're a principal player and you get criticisms thrown at you, you have to be um adaptive, and you got to
Yeah.
be able to switch. You got to be able to be versatile, flexible,
Yeah.
agile.
Like you said, it's just being
Um,
able to turn that switch real fast. It's
right.
insane. Like, when you see like some of these players, like, like a Chris Martin, Tom Hooten, Tom Rolfe's level player, they're able to switch. Like I would imagine, like if someone were
Yeah.
like, because they're already so fantastic, they're probably not getting a whole lot of criticism from conductors. Really, they're
Mhm.
probably just getting, if anything, like, "Oh, can you try this?" And they'll, they can go, "Got it, boom," and that's it. So yeah.
It's like I don't know. I've always been told that if you're in an audition and you play an excerpt and the panel asks you to play it again, but in a different way, I've heard that that's actually a good thing for the
Yes,
player
that's what I've
because
heard as well too.
it allows you to play it again,
Mm-hmm.
and it allows you to showcase a different.
Adaptability.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Um,
I remember, like, for a great example of that, this is when I was in high school going into my senior year, and I was getting ready for Atlanta Symphony Youth Orchestra auditions. And
mhm.
one of the excerpts that I had to play was the from the Firebird, the big infernal dance.
Right.
And so I knew that it was going to be the director at the time. It was Jer Flint, who was I think he started the youth orchestra back like in the late '60s. And so I played it, and it was they had a panel up and everything, so it was treated like a professional audition. So it was really cool to
Mhm.
have that experience already, going into my senior year of high school. But so when I got into it, I played it, and I played it a little too fast, because I think the nerves and the adrenaline kicked in, because I was kind of getting into my head, because I was like, man, I'm sounding really good, everything's going great. And I was like, wait a second, stop, don't do that. So I ended up playing it too fast, and then next thing you know,
Mm.
I heard a voice and I recognized it as it was Tom Hooten. And it freaked me out because I recognized the voice because I took lessons with Tom and Jen a little bit throughout high school. So I knew, I was like, that sounds like Tom. And he said, can you do that again? But can you do it a little bit slower?
Hmm.
So yeah, I think exactly like I've always been taught, and I do agree that if someone on the committee asks you to play something again and play it in a different style, or in my case a different tempo, that's a good thing because they want to see, okay, cool, let's see if you can do it again and try something
Right.
a little bit different here and there. Like, oh, cool, you use salt and pepper on this first one. Why don't you try basil and oregano instead on the next one?
One excerpt that I feel like is very good at that is the solo in American in Paris. What with the felt hat? I mean, you
Oh,
can play
yeah.
that. You can play that solo as straight or as
Yes.
smolchy as you want. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think if someone asks you to play that excerpt a different way, you need to
You got to
be
change it
very
fast.
you got to be very contrasting. If you played it very
And
straight, then you better be vibrato out the wazoo. You better be
yes.
glisten, and you better be jazzy with a
Yes.
capital Z.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. Now, there's another one that I put in here, and this was something, this is a little bit more old school, is like I said, this was something that Marie talked about. Like I said, this is really old school. She said, like, don't ask the conductor questions. You always ask the principal first. I think that is kind of, like I said, that's very old school. I think that's kind of that dynamic has changed a lot. And that I've seen many people from like that are not in like they're not like it playing principal, and like they'll like playing like second or third French horn, and they ask the conductor a question. I think that
Mhm.
that's totally fine nowadays because there are certain things that pertain to a lower part that have nothing to do with what the principal is playing.
Right.
So I think, like I said, that's more of an old school one. I just thought I put that in there just to kind of show like the progression that it's gone through.
Mhm.
Because it
I
says
don't know.
like,
I
yeah, because I
I
don't
think
think that
there's
like
some
the principal should be the only ones talking to the conductor. I think that's like I said, that's very like old school. Like the principal
right.
is the general, and you follow commands of the general.
I don't know. I think it just depends on the question that's
Yeah,
being asked. If it's a question that can easily be solved by asking
yeah,
just
absolutely.
and where you don't have to take time away from the rest
From
of
the
the
rehearsal.
ensemble, yeah,
Yeah.
or the conductor, I
Yes.
think
Oh
that's
yeah.
much more
Like I said,
effective.
that's a very old school kind of
Right.
section, how to be playing and being in a good being a good section maybe. Like I said, that's everything has progressed so far ahead down the road now compared to 50, 60 years ago. So that's
It's very true. It's very true. Very true.
yeah. um
Back in the day, like some sections just and that can still very well be the case today. Some sections just don't even like talk to one another.
yeah, I mean, what was it? I heard a story, I think it was, oh gosh, who was it? I think it was David Krause. um no, sorry, it was Mark Gould. That his
Mhm.
first year in the Met, as you know, because it was when he was there, it was him and oh gosh, it was I can't remember the name of the other principal trumpet player during that time. This was like the 70s. It'll come to me
Well, there
later.
was Mel Broyles.
Thank you, Mel Broyles. He said for the first year they didn't talk to each other just because they just didn't really have anything to talk about. And he said one time, like they were in the hallway, like somewhere, like he was walking in, and he said he said Mel stopped him and he said, "Mark, men go to war to the sound of the trumpet." And he said that was the first thing he ever said to him, and he was just like,
Yeah.
what do I say to that?
Mhm.
Which is just so strange to me. That was something I thought was really cool when I was studying with Ryan Anthony before he passed away. He said like on the weekends, like him and the rest of the Dallas trumpet section, they would hang out together.
Yeah.
They would spend time together. He said like they would go like he said the funniest thing they did was like they went. I think he said they went like dune buggying, like on dune bugs, like the motor vehicles, till like 3 in the morning one time. I was like, what? He's like, we were just having a lot of fun doing that. I was like, all right, fair enough, cool.
I cannot imagine that taking place.
Neither can I, but I mean, it happens, I guess. So
Yeah, but, when you have a section where you can be friends and kind of like delineate work from play, it makes
yeah,
it much more worthwhile experience, and
Probably
it
makes it
makes
just more
for
enjoyable
much more,
too.
yeah, trustworthy, reliable,
Yeah. I mean,
more
could you imagine?
respectful.
Yeah. Could you imagine like, just having like, just this work set mind like all the time when you're with these people? I'm like, man,
Yeah, man.
I would just be pitiful and annoying to me. I'd be like, yo, come on, let's go get something to eat, or like let's go to
Yeah,
dinner or something. Like that's just ridiculous. Um
it's
and
like you guys are all doing the thing. It's like, why can't it be a team thing kind of thing?
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, so another one that I think it's kind of to be a good section, and I've seen this happen in some other groups that I've played in. If you're not playing principal, you should not be giving suggestions to other players. Period.
Mm,
That's a big one for
facts.
me. If you're playing principal, you are the one setting the tone. You should not be leading from like third cornet or third trumpet.
Right.
Your part is to listen to them and say, okay, I'm going to match them. And if something doesn't go right because you have your own opinion, the conductor will say something to the trumpet, say, trumpets, I
Yeah.
need you to do this. Like your job should not be to do that.
It's not your responsibility to do
No,
that.
and trust me, like I mean, don't get me wrong, because I mean, you and I mostly play a lot of like first principal trumpet part stuff that we are in this mindset of like, oh well, we need to do this, we need to do that, but it's like when you get assigned third trumpet or fourth trumpet or second trumpet, your part, you're just like,
Yeah.
you just got to shut your mouth and be
And
quiet.
sometimes those parts are like phenomenal to play.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Like so on top of that is like another like tangent is making sure that you're not giving suggestions to the principal trumpet,
Hmm.
especially like in like a professional orchestral audition, like professional orchestral scenario. Like for example, like I would never say anything to Kevin or Yvonne and be like, hey, you should try this. I'd be like, what right do I have to say that? Like
Right.
I think I'm a good player, but I have like no like dog in the fight to say anything to either one of them because they are so much better than I am and they have more
Right.
experience.
It's,
So I'm like that's not for me to say. Like I would look like an absolute jerk and
yeah,
probably never get called to play again with that respective group.
kind of just like a know your place kind of thing. There's a time and place for everything, and sometimes that place is not during rehearsal. So,
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, I think we said it earlier is like especially being called in to sub, especially if it's like a group you've never performed with before or played with
mhm,
before, I think it's really important to just show up and play your music. Like, don't
yeah,
really kind of err on the side of being kind of verbally quiet, almost like someone talks to you, but
right.
you're there to do a job. Like try to keep your conversation. I would at
Mhm.
least for me. Like, I mean, if I'm playing in a group that I know pretty well, like when I'm playing in Atlanta Winds, like I sit next to Matt Scott. So like he and I are talking mostly about things
Mhm.
that are pertaining to what we're doing, especially in Mass Lanka 4. Like we're trying to figure out like, okay, what kind of articulation do we want to do here since you and I are both the
Right.
principals? So that way we can kind of set the tone for things like that. I think obviously that's different, but like being in a section like sub wise and being in a section, probably kind of quiet.
Hmm. No, I completely agree. I
Yeah.
mean, you just, especially if you're subbing, just be nice, smile,
Yeah.
do what you're told, say thank you.
Yeah.
Um, you
I
know,
think, yeah. Oh, 100%. Just, show. I mean, I remember Karen Bliznick said it perfectly, I think, in ITG 2015. So this is like after my first year at Kennesaw.
mhm.
They did like a little like masterclass thing with the section, and they obviously they sounded fantastic. But she talked about it. She was like, just be nice. Like, just be nice to everyone. It's not that hard. It really isn't. And I'm like, and that's been with me for like past like 9 years now or
Right.
something like that. I'm like, well, yeah, that just makes sense. Just be nice to people.
Yeah, there's enough hate out there, John. There's not enough
Yeah.
good. There can always be more of that.
Especially with everything going on nowadays. Like,
Indeed,
just be
my
nice.
friend.
It's just be nice. It's not that difficult. Not that difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to make music when there's like a mental barrier with someone, I'd say. And
Yeah.
that just completely goes away when you're just kind of on the same page. And it's really not hard to be on that same page. It just takes having a conversation.
Yep.
Um,
100%. 100%. And then the last thing I guess I would say to like be a good section mate is the hang after the gig. That's always like to me, that's like the best part because you get to know the people better.
right.
Like the social aspect of things. Like obviously, yes, if you're playing with them, you're like, yeah, they probably know how you play. And if you're nice enough and like, can you show up and have your part prepared and all that stuff. But I think like doing the hang afterwards is sometimes even more
Oh,
enjoyable.
yeah.
because you get to know other people in other sections, and then
Mhm.
in a way it becomes almost like a networking thing. Not saying that's like
Right.
like that's not the ultimate goal, obviously, where I'm like, I'm gonna go hang out so I can make contacts. It's like, no, that's just something that happens, kind of fluidly. Like it just happens without you even realizing it. And you're like, oh, you're a cool guy. I want to hang out with you more.
Yeah. It's
And
just a
that's
way to kind of just
yeah.
de-stress and just reflect and um,
Yes. The
you
de-stress one
know,
is definitely a big one because you can just be like, man, or that's kind of the time to. I always find that the hang part is kind of sometimes the time to kind of talk smack a little bit.
right.
If you're
I
having a
mean,
bad day or something, or like you were like, I did not agree with what the conductor did here or whatever. And we all have our own
yeah.
opinions, obviously. But I find that
But that
especially,
that's the time. That's the time when that can
yeah,
those can be shared,
yeah, 100%.
kind of thing. But
Yeah.
but yeah, but well, I think we should probably wrap up.
Sure.
I think we addressed a lot of really good
Yeah.
topics though, and I think it's a lot of
A lot of things to think about and
tips
ponder.
tips and tricks that yeah, that just
Yeah.
anyone could think about and just apply it to daily life. It doesn't have to necessarily be music. It could be, just
Yeah.
anything that's kind of where you're collaborating with others, whether it be project wise or work wise, anything
Relationships.
like
Yeah.
that.
Anything.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
so on and
100%.
so forth.
So
But
you got any last word pieces of nuggets of advice for our listeners and viewers?
I would just say show up prepared, have all the things you need to do, bring a pencil, say thank you.
Yeah.
You know, it's not hard. Um, but
Yeah.
but yeah, John, I think that's about it.
Sweet.
I hope everyone enjoys our information. Feel free to check out our previous other videos that we have going on. Yeah, I guess until next time, this is the Horn Hang with Jer and Jon. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm John.
We'll see you next time. Take care. Go practice. Bye bye.